Okay, I think we are officially live, and I'm going to give everyone a couple seconds to go ahead and hop on. And if you hear anything in the background, I do have a dog at home. Sometimes she likes to be very vocal. But all right, okay, so we're a couple seconds in here. So I thought we'd go ahead and get started. I see that someone just hopped on. That's awesome. And as a reminder, just to give some brief background, if you've never joined us before, my name is Anna Lutz Johnson. I am the education manager for the San Diego River Valley Conservancy. And if you're not familiar with the Conservancy, just a little quick background. We are an environmental nonprofit organization that focuses on the San Diego watershed, and our goals is to protect, preserve, and share both natural and cultural resources within that region. And our watershed starts up in the Julian area at Vulcan Mountain, our river, and then runs all the way down to Del Mar at North Beach, which most people know as Dog Beach. So that's a little bit about the Conservancy. And we have been doing Wednesday lives. This is our fourth one. Hi, Cassidy. Thanks for joining. So we've been doing this for 4 weeks now, and it's been such a treat to be able to learn this platform with you guys and engage and interact and discuss some really, really cool topics. And I'm really happy to announce that we are going to continue doing Facebook Lives for another 4 Wednesdays after tonight. So just a quick recap of the first 3 sessions and tonight. The first session that we had was all about pollinators and the beauty of pollination and also its importance. The second discussion that we had was about Earth Day and carbon footprints and how to decrease your carbon footprint. And then last week was the wildlife cam photo trap reviews. And I thought that one was really, really fun. You guys had a lot of great questions and insights. And then tonight, I'll get to that in a second, but we're going to be talking about Western Burrowing Owls. So they are an amazing species. I am by no means an expert, but I had a great time learning a little bit more about them and what's being done to boost their population and create habitat that's viable for them to nest. So that was the previous 4, including tonight. And then as far as the next sessions that we have, I'm really excited. We're going to be talking about birds in the San Diego watershed and why they like to be here. So we're going to be talking about some specific locations within our county or within our watershed that they like to visit and why they like to visit. And the week after that, we're going to talk about what is a watershed. We definitely reference watersheds quite consistently, and not everyone is familiar with what that means. So we're going to talk about watersheds and then also water quality, because watersheds are really centered around the rivers that run through them. And the third week, we're going to be talking about native and invasive plants. And then the last week, this will be the conclusion of our Facebook Live series that we've been doing. Hopefully by then, we'll be able to get access again to the outdoors. And in order to prepare for that, I wanted to do a discussion based on like a beginner's guide to hiking, because there are definitely some tips and tricks that I wish I knew when I first started hiking. So go ahead and to tune into those. We'll be posting as usual, like we have been for the past 4 weeks, where we post resources for you to check out, to look at beforehand, so we can share our interests together. So if you're on, go ahead and give me a hello in the comments. I'd love to see who's on tonight. I see that Andrea and Cassidy are here. It's so good to see you guys. I love that you've been coming back week to week. I really appreciate it. It's so good to talk to you. So tonight I do have a little bit of notes down here, just to keep myself on track and make sure I don't miss anything that's super important. So like I said, tonight we are going to be discussing Western Burrowing Owls. So this is a species that I've come across, hey Anna, that I've been coming across here and there as I've gotten further and further into the environmental field. Just a little quick background on me. I've been with the Conservancy for just about 3 years, a couple months shy. And it's been really, really interesting being able to see the ins and outs of these really progressive restoration projects that are looking at habitats as a whole and how these particular species can thrive from restoration projects, and giving our sensitive species a place to thrive and have chicks and do it safely. So hi, Melissa. Hi, Michael. Thanks for joining us. So a little bit about the Western Burrowing Owls. Hi, Sharon. Yes, so I have a couple activities that I'm going to string through here as we're talking. I actually have the live cam on my iPad next to me going, and oh my goodness, I would wait till the end, but this is a really good shot, so I'll show you guys. I know it's kind of difficult to see on my iPad, but you can see the mom, and then she has some of her chicks tucked neatly, or attempted to have neatly, under her, so super adorable. I'll keep this going, and if I see anything, then I will go ahead and pop it up and stop what I'm talking about, because they're just awesome. So little background on Western burrowing owls, and just as a disclaimer, I am by no means an expert on Western burrowing owls, but I have tried to do as much research as possible, and I wanted to share that with you guys. There is a particular team at San Diego Zoo. They have an Institute for Conservation Research, and they have been doing amazing work. So they definitely get major props for that, and thanks to the funders that are funding those projects. So with all of that being said, again, we're talking about Western burrowing owls. The Latin name, which I apologize, I was never good at pronouncing Latin names, is Athene, and it's Cunicularis. That's how I'm going to say that. And Athene is in reference to the Greek goddess Athena, and she was always associated with wisdom. So a lot of owls were in reference to the Greek goddess of Athena. So that's kind of where it got its Latin name. And then the latter portion of the Latin name, which I do a terrible job of pronouncing, actually means little miner in Latin, which I think is really cool, because these are like, little burrowers, little miners, for a majority of how they live their lives. So a little bit of background info, because I don't know, go ahead, give me like a thumbs up emoji if you can, or a yes, or an exclamation point, whatever. If you were able to check out that the live cam through the safari park, we linked it a couple times. So if you got a chance to see that, go ahead and give me like a little exclamation point, a thumbs up, a smiley face, anything like that. And then I will know you guys had a chance to look at it. With all that being said, is if you haven't had a chance to look at it, I would recommend doing that, because it's so fun to watch the chicks grow. But it's also kind of difficult to gauge how big they are. So I have only seen a burrowing owl in a somewhat close proximity only a few times. And so I did do some background research on their actual physical size. So they range in usually about 7.5 to 9.5 inches tall. Oh my goodness. Mom got off the chicks. I promise I'll stay on topic, but look at Mom stepped off her chicks. Oh my goodness. That's awesome. I know this isn't the best quality, guys. I appreciate you doing this with me. I tried to do screen share, but I realized that you can't do screen share while you're on Facebook Live. You can't like switch back and forth between a face cam and screen sharing. So that's awesome. Yay. I'm glad you guys were able to check it out. So it's really cool. When we started planning this series, I was thinking about like, okay, how do I want to set this up? And like, I realized, people love looking at live cams of different animals. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, it's nesting season for them. And then when I realized that there was a clutch of eggs, I was like, that is it. That is it. We are going to include this in our Facebook Live, or Wondering Wednesdays. So they were still eggs when I was planning this, and they hatched this past Friday. So guys, we got super lucky that we're able to see these little hatchlings, these little chicks. I think it's great timing. So Anyway, thank you for being flexible with my iPad and all of that stuff. So I'm glad you guys have been able to get a good look at them. So back to their size when they're full grown. And I'm glad, thanks for commenting. I'm glad that you guys were able to check it out. That's great. I'm going to keep checking them out for the next few weeks because I'm excited to see them grow. So they're about 7 to 10, or about 7.5 to 9.5 inches full grown when they're adults, and they have a nice rounded head, and they actually have little white eyebrows and really intense yellow eyes and long legs. If you have never seen, you can actually like push, don't do this, but handlers can like push up the feathers really gently, and they actually have really long legs. So go check out a picture of owl legs. I promise it will shock you. They are sandy in color, and they have a thickly spotted chest with a lot of those white tufts that are coming out. So it's really well adapted for camouflage for the type of habitats they like to be in. There is variations, obviously, between males and females. The females are going to be a little bit smaller and sometimes darker in color. And as in general, because there's different types of burrowing owls, but Western burrowing owls are some of the smallest owl species within North America, which is crazy. So they're quite small. And they're really interesting where they live. Their habitat, historically have been widespread throughout San Diego County. And so they love to have their burrows, their nesting sites, because they're semi like colonial species. Like they want to be around other pairs of burrowing owls. Not a ton, but they tend to have, I feel a sneeze coming on. Oh no. Ooh, sorry. Okay, so anyway, they like to live in that like semi-communal type of an area, and that's usually around native grasslands. So you have to think about everything in the context of where species live based on the resources that they want. So they need these grasslands because what usually is in grasslands? A lot of people usually don't like them. They see them as a nuisance. And they're not gophers, they're the other ones. But we brought him on last week, and by popular demand, our ground squirrels. If you weren't on our Facebook Live last week, this is Dagito. He is like our little mascot that we have and we bring out when we're tabling and meeting people in the community. So ground squirrels, they are super popular in the native grasslands here in San Diego County. And what they do is they can actually dig those burrows. So, which eventually the burrowing owls will move into and then have nests and lay their clutches and raise their chicks. So they need those pesky little squirrels, just kidding, both as a food source, but also for nest creation. They don't dig them themselves. So it's for food source and the correct type of habitat. So also a really quick tidbit, it's interesting, is if these burrowing owls feel really threatened, because remember, they're quite a smaller species. They're not very, very big. They actually will retreat into their burrow, and they can mimic the sound of a rattlesnake, which is, I think, a really, really good defense mechanism. So that's really, really cool. So again, they like native grasslands, but from your memory, do you notice a lot of grasslands around San Diego? And I know there's a little bit of a delay, unfortunately, when we're on Facebook Live. But a lot of, unfortunately, what's happening with Western burrowing owls is habitat loss. So our native grasslands have decreased a lot, and they have been developed over time. Therefore, the habitat is gone or it's fragmented, so these species have nowhere to live. So that being said, they are at risk of going extinct locally. So they won't go extinct as a species in totality, but in Southern California, I think like LA County and other areas, they're at risk of, unfortunately, those species becoming regionally extinct. So that's something that I'll get into a little bit later, that the Institute for Conservation Research, what they're working on, a project they're working on. So a little bit about their nesting season. It's in February and goes through August. And after a clutch is laid, which is about approximately 8 eggs that's laid in a clutch, needs about 28 to 30 day incubation before they hatch. And then once they hatch, they'll leave the nest around 6 weeks. So they grow up pretty quickly. And I have to show you guys another picture of them because, oh my goodness, they are so cute. Let me get this a little bit better. Look how cute they are. Keeping warm. They are adorable. Let's see who's in the enclosure. I don't know if you can see, it's in the kind of like the top, like in the middle almost, on the right, sitting on the rock. You can see one of the owls there just hanging. So, and Cassie, yeah, that's right. So in Ramona, which is in our watershed, there is a large expanse of grasslands. And that particular area is actually really, really great habitat for the kangaroo rat, which is also a threatened endangered species. So, and as far as how many chicks, I think 6. That's what I've tried to count, but they are huddled so closely together. I think there's 5 or 6. So keeping each other warm and doing their duty while mom is gone. And it's really sweet, actually, these burrows that are dug out by these squirrels, and then the owls, of course, will use. The mother will typically stay with the clutch, and the father, the male, will go out and hunt. And then also sometimes he will decorate the nest. So he'll bring back things to spruce it up, I guess. So that's really cool. I liked learning that. So again, back to like that nesting season, it's from February to around August, about a month of incubation for about an average of 8 eggs per clutch, and they start to leave the nest at around 6 weeks after hatching. And what they eat, their main food source, is larger insects and small mammals like mice, rats, gophers, and of course squirrels. So I have heard that they sometimes will prey on herps, so like reptiles and amphibians, but I don't think that's as much as their main food source. And some of the threats that we kind of already mentioned were these habitats that are disappearing. So there's habitat loss due to urban development. There's issues with habitat fragmentation, which means you have this like stretch of habitat and you build right in the middle of it, and you start to get fragmented and too far apart because burrowing owls like to hunt really closely to their burrows. They don't like to go really far away and then return. And then also invasive plants. When there's invasive plants that come into these areas, it will disrupt the symbiotic relationships that are going within that area. So, but thanks to our wonderful, wonderful friends at through the San Diego Zoo, the Institute for Conservation Research, they are awesome. We worked on them on other projects in the past, and they've been doing such great work with this to bring these species numbers back up, because as of right now, or maybe not right now, but from what I read in the past like year or two, the only remaining area that these burrowing owls are nesting is down in the Otay Mesa area, and I think there's around 40 to 50 pairs, mating pairs. So not a ton in order to support the population, and then also the genetic diversity. So that's something also that we'll get into. Oh, and one more thing about the burrows that I think is really interesting is that these owls will actually hunt to excess sometimes, and they can use their burrows to store leftovers for later. So they're not the only species that uses a fridge, I guess, or a pantry. So that's really, really cool. Um, that being said, like I was talking about, the Conservation Institute, they are doing this project where they, from what I read, have been doing research and tracking numbers since 2011, and then launched a project in, I believe, 2017, where it was about land mitigation and restoration in order to create suitable habitat for burrowing owls. So the way that burrowing owls are usually moved, unfortunately, there's two different types of relocations. Is these burrowing owls are relocated whenever their habitat is not an option any longer, and that's typically for a development reason, like it's slated to be developed. So they have to be removed or evicted, and then they'll collapse the burrows so they don't return, and then they'll start building and things like that. And there's, just as a quick tidbit, there's a lot of different laws and things like that that companies or organizations have to go through in order to build there. And there's mitigation efforts, so like offset efforts, in order to provide an alternative if they have to build there with that species there. So just a little background. It's not just like do you want to build here? Cool. There's a lot of steps for that. So there's two types of relocations, and passive relocation is one of them, where the burrows are collapsed, and then the burrowing owls are kind of just left to try to relocate on their own. From what I read, though, that there isn't a great amount of data tracking on the success of that. So they're not really sure, but the alternative, and by the way, when they evict the owls, that's always after breeding and nesting season. So, but for active relocation, which is different than the passive, they will collect the burrowing owls and then release them at an appropriate alternative site. And the benefit with that and the hope with that is that the site that they bring them to will already have some protected status. So that area of land will never be developed. So that's the hope with that, is that they'll be able to stay there for longer periods of time, and then obviously increase their numbers and their communities. And it's really interesting the way that some of these areas are developed. Just a little bit of what I've read, and then I think I've had also in conversation, is they try to create artificial burrows, which I think there was some difficulty with the humidity, the heat, the climate inside the burrow, like just couldn't get it as optimum as they wanted it. So sometimes what they'll do in that active relocation is actually bring in squirrels, like introduce squirrels, and the squirrels will come in, dig the burrows, and then they'll kind of kick them out, and the owls will move in then. And also something that they do, I don't remember the exact words for it, but it's really interesting, where they'll give them like cues that this is a safe place to move into, like putting mimicry feathers. Oh, really quick. Mom's coming back to her babes. This is so cute. I'll keep her on while I'm talking. So they'll use mimicry in order to hopefully convince these burrowing owls to move in. And so what they'll do is they'll put like feathers or fake bird droppings to hopefully try and convince them, like, past birds have lived here. This is a suitable place for you to live at. So it's interesting, thinking from an entire conservation and restoration perspective, that these types of owls can really change an entire landscape. It's awesome. So, well, I guess Mom is readjusting. She's so cute. That's amazing. So, with that, I wanted to see if you guys had an opportunity to do any of your observations if you're able to hop on for like 5 minutes, and what you noticed. And while you guys hopefully are commenting, or even if it's just something, or any questions, if you have any questions, please ask me. I will do my best, even though I'm not an expert, but I will do my best to answer them. Go ahead and ask any questions about burrowing owls, and something maybe that you noticed when you were watching the burrowing owl feed. And while you guys are doing that, mainly for giggles, I am going to be coloring in my owl mask, and then cutting it out, if I remember to. Yes, I did. I brought my scissors. So go ahead and start commenting below. Maybe an observation you made, or something that you thought was interesting about these burrowing owls. I don't know if anyone has ever had the opportunity to to actually have any sort of larger bird, like a raptor, or mainly like a bird of prey on their arms before, if they've ever felt that, like if they held one. But oh my goodness, it's interesting because obviously they're such large, fairly large birds, but they weigh like close to nothing, which is crazy. So I've never held one, but I know some people who work with smaller birds of prey like kestrels. And I asked them how much they weighed, and I don't remember exactly, but they were like super lightweight. Like she's incredibly lightweight, which is crazy. So it's just a good reminder that these animals are so specially adapted in order to be the most successful in flying long distances or shorter distances, spurts of energy, the prey that they're encountering. It's just incredibly impressive. Okay, Sharon, you posted a comment. Let me check that out. Once a couple gets a burrow, does the couple stay with the same burrow provided they don't get displaced? Yeah, so once they have that burrow, they'll mostly, from what I've read, and again, I'm not an expert, they will come back to it. But usually they're monogamous, but sometimes the males have more than one mate. And they do like to live in those like semi-communal areas, like I said. So they're almost like little communities. It's awesome. And I think that's just for resources and also for safety, which is really, really, really interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up my mask. Anna, I think you said that they're only 7 inches tall. I didn't realize they were so small. Yeah, so from what I was reading, they average on about full grown anywhere from 7.5 to 9.5 inches tall, which is honestly just blows my mind also, because I would not think that they would be that small, because other owls, like barn owls that I've seen, they're typically much, much larger. So that was cool for me to learn. Cassidy, yes, kestrels are even smaller. I love kestrels, and this is something that if you guys are interested in birds, I sincerely hope that that you guys are able to join next week, because we are going to be talking a little bit more about birds. And we're going to talk about different types of native birds that live in this area. And again, really emphasizing their special adaptations and how they're able to be so successful for the most part based on the areas that they live. So really cool. Andrea, who are their main predators in San Diego? Really, really good question that I don't know. But my guess would maybe be like potentially larger raptors, not in a sense of they're going them after necessarily for like prey, but maybe territorial. Again, this is speculation. But their chicks, I'm sure, are susceptible to different sort of constrictor snakes, I would imagine, since they're in a burrowed nest. And then I don't really think coyotes or bobcats would have much success in hunting them if they're full-grown adults, but it could be wrong. So good question. If I were you, I would definitely do some more research. And I'm going to go over just a couple minutes because I'm going to go ahead and bring up that live one more time, and then I'll show you guys a couple pictures that I took, which I think were so funny. And Cassidy, you asked, do they ever lay more than one clutch of eggs per year? That is also a really good question that I also don't know. But my guess is what I was reading, that their nesting and like breeding season is, about like 5-6 months, that they only do that once a year. But I could be wrong. So they are super interesting. I am getting way behind on my coloring. Also, if there are any parents on here or just people who are looking for a craft, you can always email me and I will go ahead and send you a little stencil that you can print or trace and color out to make your own owl mask, or a really, really fun activity that I remember even doing in elementary school was the owls making like owls out of like paper bags, like a sack lunch bag. So that was always like one of my favorite projects because of course it was animal emphasized. So all right, so I'm almost done wrapping up my owl. And I also forgot to mention one way that I think that they have been monitoring these. They've been using GPS, but I think they've also been using, if anybody recognizes what this is our camera trap that we featured last week. So I know that camera traps have definitely been used in order to track the success of the projects that ICR is working on. But anyway, here is my lovely owl mask that I will be cutting out after I log off. And I'm going to show you guys one or two pictures. I'll show you one quick thing of the live. Let's see if I can. Perfect. Okay. So this is the live camera of the enclosure. Let's see. Yep, that's better. And one last look at Mama. And the chicks are very well hidden. And I will show you guys one more. Image. And we got our chickies. I took this screenshot a few days ago. Whoop. Let me see. Perfect. They're so awesome. I love looking at them. Oh, I also got a really funny picture. I don't know if it's on here or not. But either way, I'm going to keep looking for this picture for just a couple of minutes. But I wanted to, found it. Perfect. So I got a really good picture of Mom staring directly into that camera. All right, everyone, that was our Burrowing Owls talk. Thank you so much for commenting, engaging, loved your questions, even though I didn't know some of them. Just a reminder to tune in next week. We have 4 more sessions coming. Next week, we're going to be talking about birds, their special adaptations, from songbirds to raptors, and I'm really excited for that topic. And I would encourage you guys to continue to go ahead and watch these burrowing owl chicks grow and absolutely thrive. So I am super excited. And if you have any questions, again, my name is Anna Letts Johnson. I work for the San Diego River Valley Conservancy. And my email is anna@sdrvc.org. And my first name is spelled A-N-A. And we look forward to seeing you next week. We all hope that you're doing well and you are safe. Hang in there, and we'll get through this together. See you next week, guys.